If you're thinking about relocating in retirement, then this video is for you. I'm going to share the process that I developed based on my own experience to help you make a better choice about whether to relocate in retirement, and if so, where. Hi, I'm Miles Holloman, and this is The Productive Retirement. On this channel, I share my thinking about and experiences of retirement, all in the hope of helping us have a happier, more successful retirement. If you're watching this, you've probably seen at least some of the seemingly endless number of YouTube videos on relocating in retirement. Some will tell you the 10 best places to retire in a given region or country. Others will give you 10 reasons why you should retire in a specific location. These videos can be helpful and entertaining, but I wouldn't recommend that anyone base their relocation decision on YouTube videos alone, including this one, because relocating in retirement is a personal decision driven by your unique circumstances. And speaking of personal circumstances, let me tell you a bit about my background and how I ended up here in Port Angeles, Washington. In 2019, my wife began to experience significant work-related stress that grew until it began to impact her physical, mental, and emotional health. After a couple of years of frustration at being unable to resolve the situation, in late 2021, we decided to relocate to Port Angeles, Washington. Not because it was on anyone's top 10 list. Believe me, it's not. Instead, my wife's grandparents moved here in the mid-70s, and my wife has fond memories of spending summers here. And when she was too much for her mother to handle, being sent up here for portions of a school year. Many of her relatives still live here, and when we visited here on vacation, she was happy. From the perspective of that single goal, to resolve my wife's health issues, this relocation has been a resounding success. My experience of our relocation, however, was a bit more, let's say, complicated. I'm a Southern California boy. My family moved to Southern California when I was in the second grade, and with the exception of a brief stint in the Navy, that's where I grew up and raised a family before I moved here. And for the 20, maybe 25 years immediately prior to moving here, I lived in Orange County, and I loved it. I loved the rich variety of music that I could find, from international stars to small city or regional bands that played in dive bars. And I loved the restaurants, the endless variety of international cuisines, and not white tablecloth dining so much as small, intimate, local restaurants where you could talk to the owner and get to know the help and come out having had a good meal for not a tremendous amount of money. I'm not meaning to criticize Port Angeles necessarily, but with a population of under 20,000 people, it just can't offer the wide variety of cultural experiences that I enjoyed in Southern California. Maybe more importantly, though, I'm now further from my children and the friendships that I cultivated over decades in Southern California. So the process I'm about to share is not based upon some studies or textbook. Instead, it's based upon my personal experience relocating in retirement. But before I go there, I have a few preliminaries. First, if you're in a permanent relationship or married, do this with your spouse or significant other. Trust me on this one. Second, I understand that people come to this decision from many different perspectives and circumstances. I don't expect that everyone will be able to or want to follow the process as I've laid it out here, but hopefully everyone will find some aspect of it useful. Take what works for you. It's okay. Third, it's important to get it right. Relocating in retirement is disruptive and costly, and the time you spend planning will help maximize the possibility that your relocation will be successful. And finally, at any point in the process, you may decide that you're okay exactly where you're at and relocating is not the best decision for you. That's okay. That's a win also. The first step in this process is to be brutally honest about your why. Why do you want to relocate? Do you want to get away from something or escape maybe a high cost of living? Maybe just circumstances and memories that you're ready to move beyond? Or, like many people in the corporate world, you found yourself throughout your career following jobs and opportunities. And now that you're retired, the music stopped, you look around and you realized, I never really liked it here. Or are you moving towards something? Maybe you want to be closer to family. Maybe you want to move to some place where you can have that ideal or dream lifestyle. Or maybe you just want a better climate. Any of these are fine, but I think it's crucial that you understand your motivation for wanting to relocate. The second step in the process is to understand your requirements. Start with your motivation, your why. If, for example, you're considering relocation to reduce your cost of living, what is the target cost of living that you want to achieve? Also, consider your current circumstances. What is working for you now? Do you finally have your home and garden exactly the way you want them? How do you spend your time that brings you joy? In my case, I went to Bolsa Chica on Sunday mornings and simply enjoyed being at the beach. And I frequented a small German deli at least twice a month. I did that for years, and it brought me a sense of happiness and belonging. So there are things that already work in your life that may be difficult to replicate, but at least think about those. Which of those do you want to have in your life moving forward? The other thing to consider is your social network. This too may be difficult to reproduce in a new location. Finally, there are some practical things that you need to consider, including access to medical care. Also consider the setting that you desire. Do you think you'd be happiest in an urban setting with easy access to mass transit, museums, and other entertainment, at the expense possibly of more noise, maybe even more crime and pollution? Or do you dream of 50 acres in Montana and some peace and quiet? And oh, by the way, if that's the case, you may be maintaining your own well and septic tank. Keep that in mind. Or are you perfectly contented in the suburbs? So in this step, think about what it is that you want in as much detail as you can muster. What are your requirements for this relocation? The third step in my process is to make a list and do some research. I suspect you already have some places in mind. Add some dream locations. Go ahead and watch some of those YouTube videos for other ideas, but make a list. And then research each of the cities on that list. Start with real estate sites to see what home prices or rental rates are like in each location. Don't be afraid to call a realtor. Tell them what your requirements are and see if they can guide you to specific neighborhoods. Also look on social media and groups dedicated to each area to see what people are complaining about or celebrating. Finally, make some calls to healthcare providers. Locate a couple of doctors and ask them, are you taking new patients? Do you take my form of insurance? Do the same with dentists. Ask them how long it takes to schedule a dental cleaning. Some of the answers that you may get may be surprising. And oh, by the way, if you have a medical condition that requires a specialist, how far away is that specialist? If you need to see them 2 or 3 times a month and they're 3 hours away, that may be a deal killer. Finally, talk to friends and people who have done this before you. They might also have some ideas. As you compile your data, go ahead and cross out those places that just aren't living up to your expectations and drive towards a short list of maybe 5 locations that seem to meet your requirements. Once you have a short list of 5 or 6 places that you're really excited about, then it's time for step 4 of my process. Visit each of those places. And I don't mean a brief one-night stay. Plan on spending 5 to 7 days in each location to get a sense for the place. Visit each of those neighborhoods that you identified in your research. Walk around. Talk to people. Are they friendly? Is the area quiet? Are the homes well kept? Visit the neighborhoods in the evening. Do you feel safe? Also, check out the features of each area that stood out for you, whether they be cultural assets, restaurants, theaters, hiking trails, or trout streams. See if the reality matches your research. Time your visit such that you're not there in peak tourist season so that you can get at least a bit of a sense for what it's like to live there year-round. So at the end of step 4, you should have some decisions to make. You might learn, for example, that none of the places you visit meet your requirements as well as your current location, in which case, staying would be the wise thing to do. Or maybe there were some places that you visited that had great potential but didn't quite cut it, for whatever reason. In that case, you may want to go back to step 3, cast a wider net, and look at some additional options. Or maybe you found that there was one place that you visited that was head and shoulders above the rest. And in that case, it's time to move to step 4 in the process. The objective of step 5 is to minimize the risk of moving to a new location, setting up a new home, and then a year and a half later, realizing that it was a mistake. So step 5 is deceptively simple. Move there temporarily. That's right. Take your top choice and rent a short-term rental in that location. Set up house and implement the lifestyle that you've been looking forward to. But do it locally. Shop at the grocery store. Go to the pharmacy. Go to the coffee shop. Enjoy the attractions that drew you there to begin with. Talk to the locals. Meet the locals and make friends. It's only after you've done this will you really be able to assess whether it's a good fit or whether there's something that in your research in your short trip that you missed or overlooked. As at the end of step 4, you may decide to go back to the drawing board or not relocate at all, and that's okay. Or, if you're lucky, you've done your research, you may have found the perfect retirement location, and it's time to pull the trigger and go. And so there you go. That's my proposed process for deciding whether to relocate, and if so, where in retirement. As I mentioned early on, all of the steps that I've outlined may not work for you and your individual situation. Take what you can and ignore the rest. And remember, it's going to look different for everyone. I know one couple who decided to move to Portugal, and I asked her just before they left, "So do you speak Portuguese?" She said, "Nope." "Have you ever been to Portugal?" "Nope." And they took the plunge anyway. And for the first 6 to 9 months, they lived just outside of Lisbon, shopping for just the right ultimate destination. I think that's been over 4 years now, and they're happy there. I also know a man who retired and moved to West Virginia. I'm not sure why he chose West Virginia. Maybe it was in search of a lower cost of living. But within a year, maybe a year and a half, he had recognized his mistake and he moved back to where he started. Luckily, he was a man with the resources to do that. Not everyone will have those resources. And finally, finding success in retirement, and happiness and satisfaction is not strictly a function of where you live. It also has to do with your determination, your attitude, and your creativity. So don't overlook those factors. Many people will retire in less than optimum places, and they'll be fine. If you have any questions, comments, or would simply like to share your experiences of relocating in retirement, do so in the comments. In the meantime, until my next video, take care of yourselves.